Daddy Le Corbusier. Daddy Le Corbusier. Today, we're gonna talk about Daddy Le Corbusier, or Le Corbusier if you're sort of normal and not weird. But if you don't know who this is, he's this guy, this fine-ass butt-naked gentleman right here. He really revolutionized architecture, and today, we're gonna find out how. Born in 1887, Le Corbusier, or Charles Edouard Jeanneret, this guy was born in Switzerland and was destined to leave an indelible mark on the world of architecture. I have no idea what that means, honestly. But how I interpreted it is this guy is the daddy of architecture and a very big brain person that revolutionized modern architecture. Throughout his career, he set off on the journey to revolutionize architecture and the way architecture is designed and built as a whole. He really thought outside of the box. While the Greeks went on and on about the 5 orders of columns, he went and wrote about the 5 points of architecture. So, the 5 points of architecture, in a way, was a manifesto to architecture. And it outlines, according to Le Corbusier, what makes modern architecture great. And coming from Le Corbusier himself, he once said that windows can be understood as the eyes of a house. Wait, sorry, that was the other guy actually. It was Tim Benton when he was simping for Daddy Le Corbusier. But anyway, in Le Corbusier's manifesto, he mentions that in order for modern architecture to be modern, it must have horizontal windows. And the function of the windows were to let in light, meaning it brings the properties of light and any sort of light source into an interior space. And that makes it good. When we see modern architecture these days, we can kind of see this sort of everywhere. When we go in a contemporary home, there are big windows. But come to downtown Toronto, there's glass glazing everywhere. Now, obviously, glass glazing and big windows also have a set of challenges, mainly He also said things like how the floor plan has to be some sort of an open plan, achieved by using free facade. What are free facade? Basically, less walls, I think. Using free facade, which is the second point of architecture, and also little columns, which is the third point of architecture. Using both of those things will help you achieve a less enclosed space and a more open plan. And the whole point of doing that is to make the interior space as airy as possible and make the users and the residents feel they're in some really cool space. Because part of the modernist vision is to bring comfort to the interior space. Remember guys, form follows function. And you can see this in a lot of architecture today and in modernist architecture. And also, if you go back then and go before the modern era of architecture, we can see the exact opposite. Say, in buildings from the neoclassicism era versus something Le Corbusier would have built. Back then, in a neoclassical building, there are a lot of decorative art elements that doesn't do anything, because ball arts. But in modern architecture, it's slightly different. Everything is kind of backwards. Function is thought of as the most important thing in any project, and form kind of follows after that. So that is exactly what Le Corbusier did to all of his projects, and it gives the users a better experience. And the final point of modern architecture is put a roof garden, because that's what architects do when we run out of ideas and get bored. We just put a bit of green on the roof and call it sustainability. So yeah, that's kind of it. The 5 points of architecture, according to Daddy Le Corbusier, are: must have columns, must have a free floor plan, must have free facade, must have horizontal windows, and a roof garden. And to me, that's very interesting, because this is all stuff we kind of see today most of the time. When someone naturally thinks of a really expensive modern mansion, this is exactly what we see. Probably not the same everywhere else in the globe, but I think Daddy Le Corbusier is really cool. Now, we're going to talk about some of his works, but we're not going to talk about all of it. But a majority of Le Corbusier's works, these 5 points of architecture can be seen used across his project. Villa Savoie, Domino House, Unité d'Habitation, and a whole bunch of other projects all incorporate these ideas. In Unité d'Habitation, which is a project built in Marseille, the idea of open space and the idea of free facade can be seen used. Apparently, he designed each unit to span from each side of the building and made the ceilings double height so that there is less corridors to go through and less walls dividing each space. So from a user's perspective, there is less spatial segregation, and it's supposed to bring the community closer together since there is less enclosed space. In the Domino House, which is more of a concept project, really thin columns can be seen used throughout the project. Instead of concrete and physical walls in the way of the space, these tiny columns were used as a substitute. By using these compact columns, it really freed up the space of the project while providing just enough support to support the entire structure. And this project was especially great and helpful because when I don't know what I'm doing with my own architecture project, I make some bullshit up about having free space and using columns. Then there was the Villa Savoie project, a modernist villa in Poissy, France. And this project incorporated all 5 of the points of architecture that we just talked about and that Le Corbusier himself made up. And of course it was white because architects love the color white. But really, throughout his career, Le Corbusier just kind of followed these 5 points of architecture that he talked about and made up a whole bunch of modernist style architecture. A lot of the concept, which is really interesting, we can still kind of see that today. I mean, open plan, big windows, and the use of columns, and having rooftop gardens and entertainment spaces. We see these things in a lot of places. And this is why Le Corbusier is Le Corbusier. And this is why he is Daddy Le Corbusier. Because he really modernized architecture, literally, and revolutionized the way we design.
Pulling out the coupe at the lot, told him fuck 12, fuck SWAT, busting all the bells out the box.